Hi there, this is Saint's updated guide to the Epic Desert Perpetual raid for Renegades. In this video, we'll go over the clan's methods for all 4 encounters, as well as how to do the secret chests. I would like to give a huge shout out to Double D, Insect, Lake Show, Tingus, and Zoidberg for helping me throughout this run to get all the POVs. Without further ado, let's get started. Let's start by talking about loadouts for this encounter. Starting off, everyone's going to want to have the refurbished A499 sniper rifle from Renegades. You can use any version of it, but it's even better if you have aggregate charge, and then it's even better if you have that with accelerated assault on a shiny version. Both will increase your damage. This is really good on its own, but also because we have Sniper's Meditation and Reload at range. For an exotic, I typically just use Malpus. It's great for general ad clear, as well as when you run out of sniper ammo during DPS. The boss is very far away, so it is highly recommended to have one of the Well Warlocks run Div with Cenotaph. You also ideally want 2 Well Warlocks, the other one running Roots of the Assembler for that extra damage bonus. If you have more than 2 Warlocks, you can run Needle Storm with the class item, particularly with a Star Eater roll. For our other 2 classes, Titans are going to want Curious with T-Crashed for that initial burst of damage, and then Hunters are going to want to do Golden Gun with Star Eaters for the same exact reason, as well as Orb Generation. Before we get into mechanics, I want to take a look at the encounter map. So this diagram showcases all the important points. Players enter from the south, and the main focal point is our particle accelerator in the middle. Starting right here with the closest left hoop is labeled number 1, and then all the other hoops just keep going up clockwise until you hit number 5. Attached to each of the hoops is also a Chronon canister. And then in middle as well, there are 3 plates for players to get buffs later on. And throughout the arena, there are these 5 platforms here we have labeled A, B, C, D, E. We call them Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo. We can't just do the letters because B, C, D, E all end with that E sound, which makes it confusing when a lot's going on. Underneath each of these sky platforms is a deposit spot, as well as a Chronon canister above the deposit spot, which will be important for mechanics later on. To start off, you need to split into 2 teams of 3. One team is going to be the dunkers, and one team is going to be the runners. Each of the dunkers need to pick a Chronon color. One person takes red, 1 blue, and 1 white. This is only important during one part of the encounter. Until you reach that part, they can pick up any Chronon color they want. And then each of the 3 runners needs to pick a plate, either the left plate, middle plate, or right plate. That stays the same throughout the entire encounter. Please note that the runners can also pick up Chronons and dunk them, but at a certain point in the encounter, they should stop and let the dunkers get all the Chronons. So when the encounter starts, the team's going to just split up around the arena and kill goblins. Once all the goblins are dead, a Hydra will spawn in the back, which you can see happening right here. At that point, everyone will sort of head to the back and kill that Hydra. Once that Hydra is dead, our Minotaurs spawn. The team is once again going to split up and then kill those Minotaurs and pick up the Chronons they drop. As you can see right here, this Minotaur dropped a red Chronon. If you look at that canister in the top right, you see that that's also red. So that canister is telling you what color that the Minotaurs are going to drop. The color of the Chronon in that canister can change. So it's very important to know what color the canister is so that you know what color you're going to be getting from the Minotaur when you kill it. So I'm going to pick up that Chronon, and I'm going to call out to my team that I'm going to dunk it in middle so we can see what hoops are red. So I go ahead and dunk it, And then, as you can see right here, this one right here, number 4, is red. At the same time, my teammates are looking throughout the entire other hoops and seeing if their colors are showing red as well. Once we get confirmation that no other hoops are red, someone needs to type out in chat what hoop is red, or the first color that you dunk, and then fill the rest of the ones with X's. Left to right, it's 1 to 5. So I go ahead and do that here. And then the next person, Lake Show, goes ahead and dunks a Chronon, which is white. And as you can see right here, we see that it is white on 2. And someone else called out that it is white on 5. So as the person who is typing, I go ahead and type it in the chat. But right here, you can see I have white as 2 and 5 and red as 4. But I also have blue as 1 and 3. That's because the hoop colors will always follow a 2-2-1 pattern. So we saw that it was 1 of red and then 2 of white. So that means the last 2 have to be blue. So you only ever need to dunk 2 colors of Chronons. And then the last 2 or the last 1, depending on what you got, will be that third color that wasn't dunked. During this part, when we are finding out what the hoop colors are, anyone can dunk any color Chronon. It's just important that the first person dunks one color, and then the second person dunks one of the 2 remaining colors. And then that way, you can immediately know what all 5 hoop colors are. As we continue on, you can immediately see right here that hoop number 2 and hoop number 4 has been dunked in, as in someone has run through it with the correct color Chronon. So as soon as we start getting those callouts, the other 3 people who picked up Chronons can start depositing their Chronons and start activating the hoops. It is very important that if you are dunking a Chronon, you always call out what hoop you are going to be dunking as soon as you know. That way it prevents people from trying to double dunk. So for the first round of Minotaurs, everyone's just picking it up, and then when we get the callouts, they say, okay, I got 1. And then once we get that second or third round of Minotaurs, they want to call out what hoop they will be dunking as soon as they see the correct Chronon canister for the Chronon color needed to activate that hoop. That way, no one is killing any extra Minotaurs, because we always want to try and keep as many Minotaurs as possible alive in case we need to get those types of Chronons later on. As soon as someone knows all 5 Minotaurs are dead, they want to make that call out to kill the Hydra. Everyone will focus it, and then once it's dead, we get a new wave of 5 Minotaurs. The reason we want to wait to kill the Hydra until all the Minotaurs are dead is because it will only respawn a Minotaur if that existing Minotaur has been killed. So if 1 Minotaur is alive and we kill a Hydra, we're only going to get 4 more Minotaurs instead of getting 5 more Minotaurs. This rule is only important before you hit the particle accelerated repair phase. Once you hit that phase, and I'll mention this again later, all Hydras need to die on site. We continue killing Minotaurs and dunking in the hoops. Right here I kill a Minotaur and get its Chronon because we realize that the Minotaurs are only dropping red and blue Chronons. This is a problem because we still need white 5. So how do we fix it? Remember how when we dunked in that center hoop to get the colors of the hoops? Well, whenever you dunk a color into it, it refreshes all the Minotaur canisters to be the 2 colors that weren't dunked. But before I dunk my Chronon, something else is happening first. Since we only need 1 more of the 5 hoops to be completed, the dunkers are going to start grabbing their assigned color Chronon. Once I get that confirmation from those 2, I go ahead and dunk a red here, and that changes the canisters to white and blue. We then realize that all the Minotaurs who would drop white are dead, so we make sure we've used all possible Chronons that we have, and then kill the Hydra to get more Minotaurs. Once we've dunked the last hoop, 4 Wyverns will spawn around the arena. The team needs to kill them as quickly as possible. Additionally, at this point, all 3 dunkers should have their assigned Chronon color. Eventually, you'll get the message Agraios grows impatient with this test in the chat. This means the repair phase will start soon, so the 3 runners need to get on their assigned plates to get their buffs. In this run, we were a little slow, as typically the wyverns are dead by the time you get this message. The plates will only give out the buffs once all 3 runners are on them. Each one will give a different type of temporality. Left gives cyclical, middle gives absolute, and right gives constant. Once the repair phase starts, 2 things will happen. First, a diamond will spawn above the refresh hoop that will shoot a giant laser beam. Avoid it as best as possible. Second, one of the bosses will be chosen. Anyone in line of sight of this boss will have a timer called variable elimination tick down. If it reaches 0, you die. The runners need to look at the name of the boss to determine who goes to dunk underneath it. They are named Agraios made constant, made cyclical, made absolute. Match up the buff, and the runner goes underneath and dunks to get the alignment buff. This buff will have 5 empty boxes, which come in use later. The other 2 runners need to look at the hoops and call out the 2 that they see as blue. The other 3 will be red. Once you have the 4 callouts, those are the hoops that need to be dunked in. In this case, I call out 1 and 4, and Zoidberg calls out 3 and 5. That means we are not dunking in 2. The person typing callouts will then update the hoop callout with an X in the spot of the hoop that wasn't called out. The dunkers will then dunk their chronons in their hoops. If a color needs 2 hoops, the dunker assigned to that color should go for the one that is the lower number. Here we have blue 1 and blue 3, so the blue dunker should dunk in 1. Once the 3 of them have dunked their first chronon, they need to find and dunk the final one. At this point, the assigned colors no longer matter. If there are no minotaurs dropping that color, someone needs to quickly refresh using the center hoop. Once all 4 hoops are repaired, the phase ends. Before moving on, I want to talk about a potential situation with the hoop colors. It's a 20% chance that the single color hoop will be the one you don't want to dunk in. With the callouts that we had, that would have been the red hoop. If this happens, the 2 dunkers whose color hoops are there need to dunk in the lower number. While they do that, the 3rd will immediately run around the arena to find one of those 2 colors. Once again, make sure to call out which hoop you are dunking so that the other 2 runners can immediately focus on that final hoop color. Now that the hoops are repaired, the runner with the alignment buff will start running through them. As they do, the boxes in their buff will fill. It does not matter what order you run through the hoops as long as you run through all 5. Once they do that, their alignment will be charged and their grenade will be replaced with a detainment bubble. The idea is to deflect the variable elimination shot back at the chosen boss. For good timing, the runner should call out when they are going through their 3rd hoop, and one of the other players will step into line with the sight of the boss and count down. Once that player reaches 1 second, the aligned runner will use their grenade. Now it's time for DPS. The team should run to the spot between hoops 3 and 4. Kill as many ads as you can, especially the Hydra if it respawns. As soon as the boss teleports to middle, pop a well and start DPS. Shortly after DPS begins, everyone will get the alignment buff and the hoops will reactivate. One of the members needs to run through all the hoops and get the alignment buff, ideally one of the well warlocks. Once again, it does not matter what order you run through the hoops as long as you run through all 5. The boss will eventually teleport onto a sky platform and begin variable elimination. Someone must count down, and then the aligned player will need to deflect the shot at 1 second. The boss will then teleport to another sky platform. As soon as anyone sees which one, they need to call it out so everyone can immediately start damaging. It will teleport 2 more times. On that last teleport, it will start variable elimination again. Sometime during those teleports, all players got alignment again. That same person needs to run through the hoops and deflect the shot at 1 second. The boss will once again teleport 2 more times. After that second teleport, DPS will immediately end. Continue to rinse and repeat until you reach final stand. Right before you reach final stand, the 3 dunkers need to call out a plate they will go on. The idea is the team needs to be split up so that each plate has 2 people because everyone needs the buff. The runners already have their plates, so the dunkers just need to call out and go on one. Once you are on a plate, do not get off until you see that everyone else is on a plate. Just because you have your buff does not mean everyone does. At this time, the boss will teleport to the middle, and 3 copies of it will spawn around the arena. Those bosses around the arena will have the names Made Constant, Made Cyclical, and Made Absolute. You need to find the one that matches your buff and kill it. If you see one that doesn't match your buff, make sure to call it out. Once all 3 are dead, the main boss in the middle becomes damageable. Kill it, and you've beaten the encounter. There are 3 secret chests in this raid, one after each encounter. As you go through the traversal section in reverse, you have to activate 4 symbols, and then the chest will spawn inside of a ball with a bunch of rotating outer parts. I'm just going to play the footage of me getting all 4 symbols, and then where the chest is. Next up, we have Epoptes, Lord of Quanta. We're going to start off again with loadouts for this encounter. For our Titans and Warlock, we want to be running an SMG and Rocket Pulse duo. You have 2 different options, either a Mitten Retrograde with bait and switch with an Anodate with target lock, bonus points if the Anodate has rewind rounds. But if you have a fast talker from this season with target lock, that does a lot more damage. You also really want it with accelerated salt and either attrition orbs or cooling baubles. This with a Sciaturna with elemental honing preferred, but really just as long as you have the rocket pulse, that's all you need. Everyone's going to want to pair this with Finality's Augur with one of the warlocks, preferably running Tractor with it. Once again, we will have our warlock 2 preferred with 1 Boots of the Assembler, that's who you probably want running Tractor. Then the other one, you can run whatever. Sanguine does really well with the Finality's damage. Any more than those 2 warlocks, once again, you want to do Prismatic Needle Storm with a Star Eater class item. With the SMG damage, you want to be running PKs on Titan, Peacekeepers with Thunder Crash. For our hunters, we have 2 different options. You can either do a good shout damage rotation with Mobius and Orpheus Rig. Little tricky though, because the boss is over a pit and you do have to retrieve the bolts, so that takes some practice. The other one is Lucky Pants with Goldie, with Crimson and the Uncivil Discourse. This can be used with the Heavy Sniper or whatever else you want for heavy damage when it's on cooldown. Let's go ahead and take a look at the encounter map. The fire team is going to enter from the south down here. The arena is going to be split into 2 sides directly down the middle, left and then right. Each side has this plate, and then each side has this little guide of 6 eyes that looks like this. The one on the left is going to be rotated at like a 45-degree angle. There's going to be 2 sub rooms, one on the left and one on the right. We call those inside. Inside right, there's a pit that you can fall into. There's also a little construction beam that has 2 sets of the guides, one on each side. For the left inside room, the beam is instead on the ceiling and still has the 2 guides, one on left and one on right. There's also this pillar that's going to be in the center. There are going to be 3 eyes that form a triangle on each of these sides. Once again, remember this split down the middle, so these are the left ones, these are the right ones. Whenever you are looking at any of the guides or the eyes on the boss's shield, this is how we number them. 1, 2, 3 on the top, 4, 5, 6 on the bottom, left to right, like you're reading a book. For team setup, you're going to split up into 2 teams of 3. One team will be for left and the other team will be for right. Each side is going to have an inside reader, a middle reader, and an ad clear. The inside readers are going to need to be able to stay alive on their own while doing mechanics and killing ads. Each team will start off by going to each of their sides and killing ads. Once they have been killed, magistrates will spawn. Magistrates are boss cyclopses that spawn on each side, which prevent the buff plates from being used. Go ahead and focus the magistrates. Once they're both dead, each pair of readers will get on their plates. Do not get on a plate unless your partner is there. The inside reader will immediately go inside their room, while the middle reader will wait on the plate for about 2 seconds. We do this so if someone was late getting the buff, they can still grab it, as the plates are active as long as someone is on both of them. Before we get into mechanics, there are a few things I want to take note of. The temporality buffs given out only last for 45 seconds. If the timer reaches 0, you die. To stop the timer from going down, you need to stay in the light of the boss's shield. Each boss in the inside rooms has 1 shield, and the main boss in the middle has 2 shields. Additionally, the readers need to be in the light so they can read the eyes as well as shoot eyes. It can take some practice to get used to the movement of the shield and staying in the light. I will give a short overview of the mechanics and then show what they look like in real time. How it works is the inside reader will look at their guide and call out the 2 glowing eyes to their middle partner. The middle reader will shoot those eyes on their guide in the middle. Once they both break, they will respawn and one of them will be glowing for about 3 seconds. The eye that's glowing is the call out they give to the opposing side's inside reader. So for instance, it would go inside right to middle right to inside left. And that call out is the eye that needs to be shot on the boss's shield. However, they should not shoot it as soon as they get the call out. Instead, wait for both inside readers to get their call out, and then they each will say ready when they are ready to shoot. Once they are both ready, one will say shoot and they shoot their eyes. Once both eyes are shot, 3 detainment squids will spawn from all 3 bosses. Kill them as soon as they spawn and then repeat this process. You ideally want 3 eyes broken on each shield before the white mechanic starts. We get our buffs and the inside readers run in while the middle readers hang out for a sec. As soon as the inside readers run in, they give their callouts. Zoid has 1 and 2 while I have 4 and 5. Our middle partners shoot, so Tingus shoots 1 and 2 while Lakeshow shoots 4 and 5. Tingus sees that it's 1 and Lakeshow sees that it's 4, so they give those callouts. The inside readers confirm and shoot the eyes. As soon as they do, everyone immediately kills the detainment squids. Zoid then calls out 2 and 4 while I call out 3 and 5. Lakeshow gets 3 and 5 while Tingus has to rotate to get 2 and 4. Lakeshow calls out 5 and Tingus calls out 4. An important note here, when the 4th eye is shot in the middle on either side, a Cyclops will spawn in that side. You do not want to shoot the eye on the shield until the Cyclops is dead on both sides. Once both of the Cyclopses are dead, we ready up and shoot. Once again, killing the detainment squids as soon as they spawn. Zoid once again calls out 2 and 4, and I call out 1 and 3. Lakeshow shoots and calls out 1. Tingus shoots and calls out 2. We confirm, shoot the eyes, and then kill the squids. At this point, we have shot 3 eyes on each shield, so I call out to prepare for the white mechanic. This gives a chance for everyone to clean up ads. When the white mechanic starts, a few things happen. First, the boss's shields in the middle will reset to their spawn positions. Second, the pillar in the middle with the 3 eye holes will have eyes spawn inside of them. Third, a triangle of floating eyes will spawn above each of the bosses in the inside rooms. These triangles are a little funky. As you can see in both of the POVs, we are looking at the side where you can see the pupils. If you are looking at that side, that means left is left and right is right. If you happen to be on the other side of the boss, your left and rights are going to be flipped. Finally, a blue bubble will spawn above each of the 3 bosses. Since we killed Agraios before this encounter, variable elimination followed us. Anyone in line of sight of those blue bubbles is going to get variable elimination, and it will start ticking down. The good news is the shields for the bosses in the inside rooms count as cover. The bad news is the shields in the middle do not, so the middle readers will have to duck and cover periodically to avoid dying. Now that that's established, how do we stop the white mechanic? The middle readers will need to look at the eyes on their side of the pillar and call out the one that isn't glowing. Here you can see Lakeshow sees left, Tingus also happens to see left. Their partner inside the room will shoot the eye in the triangle above the boss that they called out, so Zord and I both shoot left. The middle readers then have to rotate around the boss and shoot the 2 eyes that the other middle reader did not call out on the opposing side of the pillar. So since both sides were left, Lake and Tingus rotate around and shoot top and right. Let's do a quick example if the sides had different callouts. If Lake had left and Tingus had right, I would shoot left and Zoid would shoot right. Tingus would then shoot right and top, and Lakeshow would shoot left and top. Once everyone has shot their eyes, the white mechanic will end. Everyone who had a buff will lose it. The readers then need to go back to their plates and rebuff immediately. Now that we have 3 eyes left on each shield, we are going to switch to Deduction. We do this for 2 reasons. Because it's quicker and mostly prevents us from spawning Cyclopses. How it's worked so far is the callouts an inside person gives are the 2 possible eyes it could be on the other inside person's shield. The middle person is the way of reducing that to 1 eye. But since we have half the eyes gone, chances are we can deduce which one needs to be shot based off of the callout and literally cut out the middleman. Here Zoid calls out 1 and 5. Since I have 3, 5, and 6, I can deduce it's 5. I call out 1 and 3, and since Zoid has 2, 3, and 6, he can deduce it's 3. We both say we have our call out, ready up, and then shoot. We continue, and Zoid calls out 1 and 3. I only have 3 out of those 2, so I know mine. I call out 2 and 3. Since Zoid only has 2, he has his. We ready up and shoot. Now we only have 1 eye left on each shield. Don't shoot it immediately, as it will spawn another wave of squids. Wait until both sides have taken care of theirs, ready up, and then shoot. Before moving on, I want to talk about if an inside reader can't deduce their callout. If not, all they have to say is they don't have their callout. The middle reader of the opposing side then shoots what they need and gives them the correct callout. Once all 6 eyes are broken, the inside readers get the probabilistic Lancet buff. This allows them to shoot the main eye of the shield. Once that's broken, the boss inside will die. The inside reader then has to go into middle and break one of the shields of the main bosses. After both main shields are broken, DPS starts. A little after DPS starts, 2 people will be chosen. Each will be teleported into one of the side rooms. The boss in the middle will get 4 big shields. Everyone in the middle still needs to do damage by shooting through the cracks. Rotate in the well, running back when you leave it. Once the 2 teleported inside complete the mechanic, which I will show you later, they need to come back and shoot the 4 big shields in middle, 2 for each of them. Once they do that, you'll get an extended bonus DPS time, worth the no shields. So just stand in the well and hammer into Epoptes. This process will repeat 2 more times until all 6 people have been chosen. So 3 rounds of 2 people getting chosen. I'm going to continue going through the DPS phase until I get teleported in to show you what happens inside. When you get teleported inside, you immediately want to run into the light of the boss's shield, killing as many harpies as you can on the way there if there are any left. Be careful for variable elimination. Once again, in these side rooms, the boss's shield counts as cover. After about 3 to 5 seconds, the 6 mini eyes will spawn on the boss's shield. Break them as quickly as possible. Once you break all 6, break the big eye. You will be teleported back to middle. Now you need to break 2 of the shields. You can tell which shield are yours because the eye will either be fully glowing or you'll be able to see the pupil. The best thing you can do is rotate against the grain with the shields. The shields that you need to shoot will always be next to each other. After you break both of them, go back to doing DPS. Either you kill him or he goes immune and you have to rinse and repeat the process. If you have to rinse and repeat, I want to make note of 2 things. First of all, you will be able to rebuff immediately after a DPS ends, but you do not want to do that. You want to wait until the magistrate spawns, kill it, and then rebuff. Because the bosses inside the room and the shields in middle will not spawn until after the magistrate has died. Second, you only get 3 white mechanic preventions. Once you hit 3, if you get to a white mechanic, it will instantly wipe you. So you want to make sure you are getting enough eyes quickly and doing enough damage. Now for the secret chest. Here's the map of the traversal. You once again have to go through it in reverse, getting 4 symbols. Once you've gotten all 4, the chest will spawn in that purple ball with the rotating pieces. Next up is Iatros Inward Turned. For loadouts, you're going to want the same thing for Epoptes, the Rocket Pulse and SMG combo with finalities, the Well Warlock on Assembler with Tractor, other one using Sanguine or whatever they want. Sanguine works really well with finalities. If you have more than 2, Needle Storm with the Star Eater's class item once again does phenomenal. For Titan, you're going to want Curus with T-Crash for that super boost damage, as there is no crit spot for this boss. For Hunter, even though there is no crit, Wither Horde with the Good Shout and Mobius with Orpheus does really well for DPS. Let's take a look at the encounter map. There are 6 main areas for this encounter. The 3 areas with plates are red, blue, and white. Red sort of has a red light on it, and then blue has the big open sky, and then white is where you place your rally flag. Then there are 3 other areas. Where we entered the encounter is green. In the far back left corner, there is pink, and then to the right is yellow. These 3 areas have a light shining on them that is that color, and green has a bunch of green fauna. Pink, green, and yellow also have the pillars on them They are pillars that will have 3 Vex nodes throughout them. And then there are going to be 4 temporal oculus spots throughout the encounter, 1 in each of these areas, and then 1 where the boss is standing. And then in the center is our hourglass with the rotating hoop. For your team setup, it's going to be split into 2 different parts of the encounter. The introduction, you're going to need to split up into 3 teams of 2, and those teams are going to head to each of those areas. 1 pink, 1 green, and then 1 at yellow. After you finish the introduction phase, 1 person from each of those teams will be the shooter for that area, and then 2 of the others will be your dunkers, and then that last person. When you start the encounter, one of the people in green needs to step into the temporal oculus pool and read what color the hoop is. 1 person will quickly type that in chat. Before we continue, I want to talk about what the chat callout will mean. It's divided into 2 parts, with the first 3 characters being the hoop color order, and the last 3 characters being the chronon spawn location. For those last 3 characters, the leftmost one represents pink, the middle one represents green, and the rightmost one represents yellow. 2 minotaurs will spawn at green, pink, and yellow. It's important we know what color chronons they drop for later. So I type W in the chat for white, as it's the first hoop color. We kill our minotaurs and see that they are white. This means we will be dunking first. Tingus and I get ready and then jump through the hoop together. It is very important that the teams dunk together, as the hoop color changes about 2 seconds after a chronon is dunked. Running through it with the wrong color kills you. Since we were the first to dunk, one of us needs to grab the temporal oculus buff at blue and read the next color. I am able to finish the first part of the chat callout, since it's going to be all 3 colors no matter what. Here I wait to get confirmation from one of the other 2 teams of which color chronon dropped from their area. Once I do, I fully fill out the callout. In this case, we have the hoop order white, then red, then blue. Red chronons are spawning at pink, white chronons are spawning at green, and blue chronons are spawning at yellow. Keep going until the hourglass is full. You know it's full once a Vex node spawns underneath it. At this point, we are done with the intro and preparing for the next part. I quickly want to pull up the encounter map again. If you remember, red has a plate, blue has a plate, and white has a plate. Before we start the next part of the encounter, our 3 shooters are going to want to go to their plate. To know which plate is associated to what area, think of it as green and blue form a line down the center of the arena, so those 2 are together. Anything to the left of that is for pink, anything to the right is for yellow. So the pink shooter needs to stand on the red plate, the green shooter needs to stand on the blue plate, and the yellow shooter needs to stand on the white plate. Also, before we start, the dunkers are going to want to grab the chronon color that is first in the order. So in this case, it's white. So they are both going to head to pink and pick up a white chronon and get by the hoop. The reason we want to do this is because as soon as we shoot that node under the hourglass, it's going to start draining sand. And once it's fully empty, we have about 10 seconds to put more chronons in it before we wipe. Once everyone's ready, the runner will shoot the node. 2 things happen. First, the plates activate. The runners need to make sure they are all on them to get their buff. Second, diastole begins. At the top of every player's screen, there will be a rhythm-based buff. Once it fills that 4th box, any player on the ground will be suspended for 3 seconds. Jump to avoid this. For this explanation, it's going to be broken into 3 parts. First, I will go over the runner's role. The runner will need to call out what boxes the shooters shoot. To know what boxes they shoot, there will be 3 chronon canisters. These canisters will either spawn at red, or at blue, or at white. Wherever they spawn is where the runner is going to run. A blue chronon in the canister means top, a white chronon means middle, and a red chronon means bottom. Here, we lucked out and got all bottom. So, as this diastole is ending, I call out all bottom. They will then shoot on the next diastole, which will make sense when I go over the shooter's role. Once they do, 3 platforms will spawn, and I'll need to jump up them. As I'm jumping up them, I need to make a mental note of what the chronon colors in the canisters are. On the 3rd platform, there'll be a Vex cube I need to activate. After I activate it, I will make the call out when a diastole is halfway through. This is purely for timing and makes it a lot easier to digest. After I make that call out, the shooters will shoot at the end of the next diastole. Once they do, 3 more platforms will spawn, and the platforms I'm on will despawn. As I'm jumping up these, I see red, red, and white, which means I need to call out 2 for bottom and 1 for middle. After I activate the cube on the 2nd beat of diastole, I'd call out Tingus Lakeshore bottom, double D middle. That way, on the next diastole, they can shoot. Once again, 3 more platforms will spawn. There's no more to call out as these are the final 3. As soon as I activate the 3rd cube, DPS will start. I will not activate until the hourglass is at least half full. This is because it will still drain during DPS, and we want enough time without worrying about chronons. Before you activate the last cube, call out which area you were running, either red, blue, or white, so that the other fire team members can head over there. Once you activate the cube, DPS will shortly start at that area. Now we will go over the shooter rule. The shooter will get a buff from the plate they stand on. Red gives constant, blue gives absolute, and white gives cyclical. Remember how I said the plates line up to the other areas? This is because the pillar at those areas can only be shot with the correct buff. Pink requires constant, green requires absolute, and yellow requires cyclical. So, once they get their buffs, they need to head where they can see their pillar. They don't have to go directly to the area the pillar is in, just as long as they can see it. Once they get the call out from the runner, all 3 shooters need to shoot the node given to them on the 4th beat of the next diastole. Think of the diastole as a countdown. 3, 2, 1, shoot. Make sure to jump when you shoot on that 4th beat to avoid getting suspended. If someone messes up, the hourglass will drain a chunk of chronons and the platforms won't spawn. This makes the dunkers need to do extra work, and the shooters will need to shoot again on the next 4th beat of diastole. You know the boxes have been shot correctly as a shooter if in the chat it says Iatros loses control of phase space. Once the shooters correctly shoot a box, their buffs might get changed. This means they will need to go to the pillar that their buff matches. Lakeshore gets cyclical, so he must run to where he can see the yellow pillar. Once he gets his call out, which happens to be middle, he will wait for the next diastole and then shoot it on the 4th beat. You can see here that his buff changes back to constant, so he will head back to pink. He gets his final call out, which is bottom, waits for the next diastole, and shoots it on the 4th beat. Since this was the 3rd box, he heads straight to the DPS spot, which is white. Now it's time to talk about the dunkers. The dunkers need to stay together, get chronons, and dunk them in the hoop. Before we shoot the node, they need to head to the area where the first color chronon they need will be, which is white in this case. So Zoided and Sect will head to pink and get their chronons. Once they get their chronons, they will head to the hoop and either jump through it or wait. If the diastole phase just started, they should wait so that the hourglass can drain and then they can fill it back up to the top, giving them more time. Once they do that, they go to their next color chronon, which is red. This is spawning at green. They kill the Minotaurs, grab their chronons, and dunk them. Once they do that, you can see the message, the flow of Chronon slows. This means that only one Minotaur will spawn in each area. The Minotaurs dropping the next color Chronon can still be killed together, as there should be two, but the Dunkers will need to communicate and split up after that. One should go for the next Chronon, while the other goes for the one after that. So essentially staggering themselves. You won't have to do this for long if the others are doing the mechanics correctly. For instance, here we got the message right as we were going into DPS, and the hourglass was pretty much full. Shortly after that third cube is activated by the runner, Iatros will teleport onto the plate they were running. I was running at blue, so we teleported onto the plate at blue. He will start moving towards another one of the areas. Typically he gets staggered pretty often, so his movement is pretty slow. If he starts at blue, he goes to white. If he starts at white, he goes to blue. If he starts as red, he goes to blue. Just keep doing damage and moving with him. Since we killed Epoptes last, detainment squids will spawn during DPS. Typically, if we're all on top of each other, we'll break the bubble as we go. But if someone gets stuck behind, make sure they call it out so that someone can turn around and free them. Keep going until you kill him, or you have to rinse and repeat. If you have to rinse and repeat, there's two things you need to know. First of all, the hoop order stays the same, but it resets back to the first one. So in this case, it's white, red, and blue. If red was the last one dunked, or if white was the last one dunked, it's gonna be white first no matter what. The other thing is that the Chronon colors of the Minotaurs is gonna be randomized again. So here it was white at pink, red at green, and blue at yellow. Now white is still at pink, but now blue is at green and red is at yellow. Keep going until you've killed him. For the secret chest, once again, it's going through the traversal in reverse. Grab those 4 symbols and then head to the spinning ball in middle to get your chest. Now you have made it to Koregos, Fractured in Time. Before we get into this encounter, I do want to say it is a lot to digest at once, but a lot of the mechanics do repeat. So once you find that pattern, you'll see how easier it becomes. For loadouts, we once again want to do our Rocket Pulse and SMG combo with finalities, our Assembler Warlock on Tractor. We only really need one Well Warlock, but if you want a second one for Orb Creation, or if you just want to run Sanguine for the finalities damage, you can do that as well. If you're not going to run Well, we have our Needle Storm, as well with our Star Eaters class item. Titans are going to want to run T-Crash with Peacekeepers. And then our Hunters are going to want to run either the Good Shout, Mobius, Orpheus build, or the Uncivil Discourse, Crimson, Lucky Pants build. Now this is for a majority of the encounter, but for Phase 3, which will make sense when I get into it, you need to switch to a long-range damage loadout. So that's going to be your Heavy Sniper, refurbished A499, with the Artifact mods, and then Malpus. Warlocks, you are still going to be on Well with the Assembler. This time you don't really need Sanguine because you're not doing any solar damage. And then instead of Needle Storm, you're going to want to run Nova Bomb. Titans are going to want to run Twilight Arsenal with the class item, a Star Eaters class item. And then Hunters are going to want to run the Lucky Pants build with Crimson and Uncivil Discourse. For the encounter map, the team is once again entering from around the south side. Koregos is going to be in the middle. There's going to be 3 pillars around Koregos that have an empty spot where a crystal will be once the encounter starts going. You're going to have your hourglass in the corner with the rotating hoop. There's going to be these 3 giant blue triangle doors that are going to be portals once they open to different areas. There are these 3 canisters, one here, one down here, and then one over here. This one's red, white, and then blue for the different Chronons you have to align to. When you do align to Chronons and have a Wyvern spawn, the Wyvern will always spawn in front of that canister. And once again, that will make sense once we get into the encounter. Each of the portals will have a Cyclops spawn in it eventually, which locks the portal. Those have to die immediately. And then also there's going to be the 3 Chronon canisters that are empty, which come off of these pillars. That will eventually be used to know what Chronon we align to it. When we do damage, we'll be doing it on Koregos to the giant head. But for the long range phase, we'll have to go to where the right Chronon is, and he'll be in the sky. There are these 3 plates, which are going to be important for mechanic during the long range damage phase. So first up, we have the pre-phase. This section is all about finding out what color Chronon we will need to align to first. As soon as it starts, the 3 bosses are going to wake up and start attacking the fire team. They are immune, so avoid them as best as possible. Ads will also spawn, so take care of them as soon as you see them. Additionally, everyone will get worldline stability. This is your timer. If it empties and mechanics have not been done correctly, you will wipe. Just keep killing ads and surviving. Eventually, Koregos will raise his arms and activate the Koregos protocol. 3 diamonds will spawn in the sky that shoot giant laser beams on the players. 2 players will also get the banishment buff. There are 2 ways to get rid of banishment. The first is to activate one of the 4 Vex cubes that spawn on Koregos. The second is to go through an open portal. Which way you use will depend on which portal opens. If it's the portal with the crystal shooting a laser into it, that means the pair goes inside of it. If it's not, they need to use the Vex cubes. Here I can see it's not the correct door, so I call it out. Like Show and Double D then use the Vex cubes to get rid of their banishment. Once both players have gotten rid of their banishment, whether they use the portal or the cubes, a Cyclops will spawn in front of the portal that was open. Kill it immediately. Additionally, once a pair gets rid of their banishment, the next 2 will be picked. The order that the pairs get banished will stay the same throughout the entire encounter, but will be randomized on different attempts of the encounter. Here we can see the portal in front of the crystal open. Since there's only 1 crystal, we know it's the correct door, as that crystal has to be shooting a laser into it. Zorberg and Tingus will go into the portal, and a Cyclops will spawn. Once again, kill it immediately. After they do, Insect and I get banishment. Since the correct portal has already been used, we know that we will use the Vex cubes. Now all the banishments are gone. But what exactly are Zord and Tingus doing in the portal? Once they go inside, at least one of them needs to grab the buff from the plate. They then need to head to the end of the area and kill the Cyclops. Once that Cyclops and the Cyclops outside are dead, they can leave. As soon as they leave, one of them needs to shatter the outer shell of the crystal with the buff. I will show this later. Now we are bound into the world line, meaning we did the mechanics correctly. World line stability will start draining quickly. Just survive until it reaches 0. Once it reaches 1/4 left, the empty canisters in the middle will fill up with a color. Here it is white, so someone will type that into the chat. Avoid the variable elimination, and once world line stability reaches 0, you will reset to the beginning of the encounter and enter phase 1. Small note, what Zord and Tingus did inside the portal, just grabbing the buff and quickly getting out, only happens during the pre-phase. From now on, anyone inside the portal will have to do a minigame. Now we are in phase 1. Rally once again and head in the middle to continue. As we are starting, I am making my way over to the white Chronite canister so we can align it. It will be briefly locked, just wait until you can do it. Now the banishment phase begins. Once again, we are looking for the right door. Click Show and Double D get chosen and see that it's the wrong door, so they use the Vex Cubes. Zord and Tingus get chosen and see it's the correct door, so they will head inside. Insect and I get chosen, and we will use the Vex Cubes since we know the correct door has already been opened. The people still in the middle just need to kill ads and survive. The people inside will eventually call out that the Wyvern is spawning. Head to its spawn location, and remember, it will always spawn in front of the aligned canister. Kill it, and it will drop 4 Chronons. The 4 people in middle will each need to pick up a Chronon and dunk it in the hourglass. Make sure you actually pick one up as they are on top of each other, so you and another player might be grabbing the same one at the same time. Once all 4 in, shoot the Vex Stone under the hourglass, and the people inside will begin the minigame. At this point, I've said minigame a few times. So what does that mean? Well, inside the portals, the players will need to do mechanics and kill the boss. Each one will use mechanics from the first 3 encounters. Additionally, the order of the minigames will be in the order we did the encounters. So for us, it will be Agraios, then Epoptes, then Iatros. We want Iatros' last because its minigame is the longest and easiest to mess up. And for the third phase, damage time is not based on wordline stability, just like it is for phase 1 and phase 2. So let's go ahead and look at Zord's POV for the minigame. They enter the portal and head to the end of the room. Only one person grabs the buff, as the mechanics require a buffed and non-buffed person, so the 2 of them will communicate on who's getting it. They need to kill the Imp Swarm as soon as it spawns, and then the Cyclops. Killing the Imp Swarm is what makes the Wyvern spawn, so they will then call out that the Wyvern is spawning, and wait for the middle people to fill the hourglass and shoot the node. For some reason, they take a little while to kill the Cyclops, but that's okay because they kill it before the minigame starts. Once it starts, 3 eyes will spawn. The person with the buff can see what eyes need to be shot, and the non-buff person will need to shoot them. Zord calls out right and Tingus shoots it. He then calls out middle and Tingus shoots it. Finally, Tingus shoots the last eye. Once the last eye is dead, they get the undoing of Agraios. This buff lets them kill Agraios at any time from this point onward in the encounter. So they kill Agraios and head out. While they are heading out, they call out that it's time for DPS. Zoidberg, as the buff person, needs to shatter the crystal shell. You can do it like he does by finding the right spot on the ground, but I personally have better luck by jumping in the air with it. Interact to break it, and then call out for a non-buff person to shoot the core. We are able to shoot the core this time because the boss linked to it, Agraios, is dead. As soon as it's shot, DPS starts. Place the well on Koregos and go ham. Once worldline stability reaches 1/4, the canisters will fill with the chronon color needed for the next phase. Here it's white again, but it could have been any of the 3. Do damage until worldline stability runs out, and then you've entered phase 2. Phase 2 is pretty much the exact same thing besides 2 differences. After we rally, I go and align the white canister. While I'm doing this, Zord and Tingus are going to kill Agraios. Since we are in phase 2, there are now 2 crystals that need to be broken. To break one of them, they kill Agraios, get the buff from killing him, and shatter the shell. A non-buff person then shoots the core. It will never be the crystal that the laser is shooting out of, as that's for the current minigame. Shortly after, the banishment phase will begin again. Do the exact same thing, only going in the portal if it's correct. For this phase, Lakeshow and Double D got the correct door, so they go in while the rest of us use the cubes. They call out they killed the Imp Swarm, we kill the Wyvern, dunk the Chronons, shoot the node, and then they begin the minigame. They go in and kill the Cyclops immediately. Double D then waits for the Imp Swarm to spawn. Once it spawns, he kills it. They decide Double D will get the buff. The orientation for the hoop callouts are from when you enter the first portal. So right here you can see it's left, middle, and right. Once the minigame starts, Double D will stand in the light of Epoptes' shield and call out the 2 hoops he sees as blue, just like the Agraios encounter. Lictor will also see 2 blue hoops and has to match the one they have the same. Double D calls out mid and right. Since Lictor sees mid and left, he knows it's mid. He jumps on the hoop and activates the Vex Cube atop it. Once he does, Double D can shoot the eye on the shield to break it, and they can kill Epoptes. They then head out and Double D shatters the crystal. A non-buff person shoots the core and DPS starts. Once again, as the world line stability reaches 1/4, take note of the Chronon canister color. It just so happens we got white for all 3 phases. Now we are in phase 3. Before we begin, make sure you're on your long range damage loadout. I once again go to align the white Chronon. Zord and Tingus kill Agraios, while Lake and Double D kill Epoptes. They each shatter the outer shell of their crystals, and a non-buffed person shoots the core. The banishment phase begins again. At this point, it's going to be the 3rd pair that hasn't done a minigame yet that's going to do it. So Insect and I know it's going to be us. So we keep waiting until the other 4 have used the cubes, and then we're going to go in. We run to the end of the room to kill the Imp Swarm and the Cyclops. Since this room is so long, it's much safer to go back to the middle and hop back into the portal. I say I'll get the buff, but it doesn't matter as much right now, as this is the only minigame that doesn't require a buffed and non-buffed person. Before we start the minigame, each of us pick a side. Insect goes left, and I go right. Additionally, one of the 4 people in middle will come inside to help kill ads after they've dunked their first Chronon. For us, it was Zord. Once it starts, a box will spawn on each side. They need to be shot together on the 4th beat of diastole. Whether or not they are shot correctly, 3 detainment squids will spawn from each cube. Try to kill them quickly, but if you get detained, it's not that bad as you're able to free yourself unlike before. Keep going until all 3 boxes on each side are shot, and then kill Iatros. This time, when we head to middle, we make the call out to get off Koregos. Once the crystal's core is shot, he will teleport to the long-range damage spot. As the team heads over there, you'll need to split it to 3 teams of 2. The best way to do this is to stay with your banishment partner. The first banished pair will go left, the second will go mid, and the third will go right. We did not do this in this run, but this will be the standard going forward. If we did this in this run, Lictor and Double D would go left, Zord and Tingus will go middle, and Satan Insect would go right. One person from each team steps on the plate to get the buff, and then DPS begins. Start doing damage. At this point, Koregos will start throwing everything at you. So diastole, squids, and variable elimination. Eventually, one of the 3 platforms will be trapped. Any person with the buff can shatter the shell, which brings down the prison. Then any non-buffed person can shoot the core. Once the core is shot, the buffs may be changed around, so take note. Keep going until you do enough damage to go into final stand, you miss a crystal, or you've shot 3 cores and it forces you into final stand. Now we are at the final stand. Switch back to your close range loadouts. When you start, you need to kill the Harpy, where Koregos was before. The portal on the opposite side of the arena will open. When you go in, make sure you enter the portal staggered, because if everyone goes through at once, one person might get launched across the arena. Before you go in, one person needs to take the lead. They will take the first Vex cube, and then call out everyone's name one by one. When a person's name is called, they will use the Vex cube to get rid of banishment. Make sure everyone is together before you use a cube, as the platform you are on will despawn, and another one will spawn. Keep going until you've made it to Koregos. Once you're at Koregos, 3 people will get the buff and 3 crystals will spawn. Shatter the shell and shoot the core of all 3 as quickly as possible. You will now be vulnerable. Pop the well on him and do DPS. Be aware of the variable elimination. You will need to crouch and move side to side while doing DPS. If you don't do enough DPS quickly, another 3 people will get the buff and another 3 crystals will spawn. Break them to continue. Keep going until you've killed him. Now run away until the decoherence imminent timer goes away. Once he explodes, head through the portal and reap your spoils. You have now beaten Epic Desert Perpetual. Once again, I would like to give a huge shout out to Lakeshow, Double D, Insect, Tingus, and Zoid. Helped me record all of the POVs, as well as doing phenomenally throughout the entire run. This raid can seem daunting, and there is a lot to digest, but once you get into it and get the experience, it's really not as bad as it seems.